Let your imagination soar with Audible. With stories across every genre, from expert advice to fantasy, you'll be inspired to imagine new worlds, possibilities, and ways of thinking. Listening can even lead to a positive change in your mood, habits, and overall well-being. As an Audible member, you'll get to choose one title a month to keep from their entire catalog, including bestsellers and new releases. Allow yourself to delve into the spooky this season by listening to classics like Stephen King's The Shining and Pet Sematary. There's more to imagine when you listen. New members can try Audible free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/imagine or text imagine to 500-500. That's audible.com/imagine or text imagine to 500-500.
Worried about letting someone else pick out the perfect avocado for your perfect impress them on the third date guacamole? Well, good thing Instacart shoppers are as picky as you are. They find ripe avocados like it's their guac on the line. They are milk expiration date detectives. They bag eggs like the 12 precious pieces of cargo they are. So let Instacart shoppers overthink your groceries so that you can overthink what you'll wear on that third date. Download the Instacart app today to get free delivery on your first 3 orders, while supplies last. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
Better not have no plans tonight.
Movie time and it's feeling right.
You're looking for a love that lasts. You'll find it at Romancing the Podcast. Ooh, ooh, baby, you had me at hello. Ooh, I love you.
I know.
Ooh, ooh, baby, you're the wind beneath my wings. I'll have what she's having.
Thank you for tuning into Romancing the Pod. You had us at gunshots. I'm Paige Wesley.
And I'm Todd Schlosser. And this week, Paige made us watch True Romance. And Paige, wow. This is the first time I'd seen this movie. Wow.
It's a journey, right?
Yeah. There are things I liked about it.
Yes.
And then there are things I really didn't like about it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So what was the first time you saw this movie, though?
I saw this movie for the first time in college, so probably close to like 15 years ago.
It makes complete sense that you would see this going into film school. Yes, of course.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. And part of the reason why we were watching it in film school is to kind of demonstrate the difference between what someone would call like an auteur versus a director taking somebody else's script and making it. Because this is a Quentin Tarantino script directed by Tony Scott.
Yeah.
Now, there are some parts of this that are so intrinsically Quentin Tarantino that got left in when maybe they shouldn't have, because this is early Quentin Tarantino, that I think is wild watching it now and being like, why'd Tony leave that in there? But who's to say?
That's a lot of N-word usage for a few characters.
Well, like I said, it's early Quentin Tarantino where at some point somebody pulled him aside and was like, yo, you can't do that. But it was too late. Like it was like 4 movies deep. Like it should have been 0 movies deep, but people didn't do it till like 4 movies deep. That's a part I'd completely blocked out of this film where I was like watching it. I was like, what's Dennis Hopper doing here? And then like Christopher Walken comes in. I was like, oh shit, that is this one, isn't it?
Dennis Hopper is being real racist. That's what he's being in this movie. Yeah.
He's being similarly Christopher Walken super racist because that's why he kills him.
It's
all bad.
Yeah.
It's all bad. And it's a side quest in this movie that you're like, why does this even need to be here?
Because it's your main character's father.
No, Todd, hear me out. The only reason it's there is so a mobster can walk up to the fridge and be like, oh, there's a note right here. Which that is kind of part of what I like about this movie is it has a real Coen Brothers Fargo-esque vibe of everyone in this movie bumbling their way through a horrifically violent cocaine heist. And then in the middle of it are 2 people in a toxic relationship making the worst decisions possible, but they get a happy ending? Like, it's a crazy movie.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, every pretentious film nerd gets to finally hear what they've been dying to hear their entire life. And that's a hot blonde ASMR whispering, "You're so cool. You're so cool. You're so cool." Into their ear.
The exchange of that is then you have to wear an eye patch for the rest of your life, which by the way is so cool. It's so fucking cool. It's like Kurt Russell levels of cool.
Also, he wouldn't. All he would do is maybe like, I don't know, not have part of his eyebrow. Because when he got, quote, shot, it's like a bullet didn't hit him, but as it was missing him, it punched him in the face.
Yeah.
Like it's that kind of damage, which is to say, not much. And he's wearing an eye patch years later on a Mexican beach? Disagree, Paige.
I think he still could have gone blind from the impact. Like it could have, dislodged optical nerves or whatever.
I'm not a doctor. I don't know.
I think the reality is more that he would end up kind of looking like Drexel, which is a weird cycle if you want to think about it, of the people that she ends up near in her life. Like, here's the thing.
Tell me the thing, Paige. Tell me the thing, baby.
The first 20 minutes of this movie.
I liked a lot, actually. I'm not
Love
gonna
it,
lie.
right?
I was like, hell yeah. Why is Gary Oldman doing this? But other than that, great. I love it.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the movie's setting you up to be like, see, they're meant to be together. And I'm like, if the rest of this movie went a different way, I'd agree with you. But instead, this movie sets up a real great meet cute and a real first like date where you're like, oh, I am rooting for these people. And then Fargo happens, basically.
Yeah, it's craziness.
Los Angeles Fargo happens. A bunch of different people have different motivations. They all end up shooting each other. And at the end, they're like, but in the end, we made it to that beach in Mexico. And you're like, what just happened? What did I sit through? But you know what? Hardly ever bored.
Paige, I wasn't bored at all watching this movie. I was very uncomfortable in a few scenes.
That's fair.
When there were a lot of racial slurs being thrown around.
There's way too much slurs.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah.
All types.
But Paige, because Natalie and I watched this together, when she asked me how I felt about it, I asked her a question that I'm going to ask you.
That's great. Let's go.
Have you seen the John Candy vehicle, Delirious?
No.
Okay. Here's a quick recapping of Delirious from my memory, someone who hasn't seen the movie in possibly 30 years.
Great.
John Candy finds a magical keyboard and things he writes on that keyboard come true in real life.
Okay.
And it becomes like this guy's like horny adventure, not necessarily horny, but like spy.
You think he wrote this movie and it came to
Yes.
life?
And that is 1000% what we are watching in this movie. This right here is if Quentin Tarantino found the magic keyboard from Delirious, and that's all I can say. That's the end of it. That's all it is.
I cannot disagree with you at all, especially watching this now, many, many years after seeing it for the first time. He believes himself to be the Christian Slater character.
Oh, does he, Paige?
100%.
Of course that's who he is.
Of course that's who he is, right? And like, he's basically writing himself into this. But I watched this. So when was the last time you watched the movie Drive?
Oh, Paige, I am ashamed to admit, pretty recently. I love that movie.
Great. No, that's great.
The elevator scene when he
hottest thing I've ever seen.
Oof.
So good. I watched the movie Drive, loved it instantly. Still do.
Yeah.
Still really enjoy Drive. I still enjoy this movie. I don't enjoy the slurs. There's a lot of the rest of the movie that I like. But in Drive, I remember watching it and talking to somebody about it and being like, oh my gosh, this, and this. And they're like, have you ever considered an alternate perspective of Drive in which most of this is you're seeing Ryan Gosling's perspective.
Yeah.
And he is having a mental health crisis and she is just trying to be safe.
Yeah.
And he is kind of the villain of the movie. And I was like, holy shit. And that kind of made the movie more interesting, like, because you could read it either way.
I think you could read it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel the same about this movie, where on this watch, especially with whenever he's alone and he's talking to Elvis, I'm like, this is a man in a mental health crisis and everyone else is collateral damage. And what a terrifying thing to paint this as. This is romantic and cool. And I'm like, oh no, these are two people in a folie à deux type madness that are rolling through this weird life and are the result of multiple people getting killed. And they aren't really cognizant or conscious of it. And I think the really interesting thing about that is this was written right around the same time as Natural Born Killers. That's the other script Quentin Tarantino wrote and sold to somebody else to direct so that he could then go on and direct Pulp Fiction and whatever.
And honestly, become Quentin Tarantino.
Quentin Tarantino,
Pulp Fiction is like what skyrocketed him. And then people were like, oh, have you seen True Romance? He wrote True Romance.
Right, exactly.
Or what about Natural Born Killers? Like that. I learned about those movies through Pulp Fiction.
Right. And Natural Born Killers is like the worst version of that, where it's like so toxic and bad, and you are really watching, in many ways, potentially the villains walk through the movie. Now, obviously, you're seeing other parts of their story. It's more complicated than that, but still, like, he wrote this and was like, we could ratchet it up a notch, I think, in the Natural Born Killers.
I honestly feel like if you look at Natural Born Killers, this feels like and not to bring up another John Candy vehicle, but this is like
the planes, trains, and automobiles of Natural Born Killers.
No, if you listen to the soundtrack, it's more Cool Runnings, but I can see how you got there.
Oh my God, the score of this movie is insane. The score of this movie is one of my biggest, like, dislike notes of this movie. I mean, not biggest. Obviously, the slurs are the biggest. Once we get past that, the score, because anytime we're talking about just their love story, it's a bonkers.
Paige, it's marimba doing steel drum sounds. Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, this fits nowhere. This fits nowhere in this movie.
It fits in the very last scene.
Sure.
When they're on the beach in Mexico. But that we only get it that one time.
Right.
The rest of the time we get it, it's like in Detroit.
It's in Detroit.
Or it's like in like a hotel lobby where they got blood all over them. Like, what are we doing, guys?
They're like escaping with like a suitcase full of money from the cocaine. Yeah, it's bonkers. Yeah. Like, it's absolute madness.
Or I guess what I'm trying to say is, Paige, it's true romance is really
true
what it
romance.
is. It is just true romance. And if you thought you and your husband or your wife were in love and you have not murdered a bunch of coke dealers and
so
sort of
people.
like led to some of your friends dying.
Sure.
So you could live out your, I don't know, bangable fantasy on a beach in Mexico until you have a child. Like, that's not true romance. I hate to break it to you.
I feel like this movie both misunderstands healthy relationships entirely.
Yes.
But also completely misses the hilarious Jake. I guess Jake is either watching True Romance because I left it on, or is just texting me from the kitchen. Oh Lord, I just remembered the N-word monologue in this thing. Oh no. Accurate.
I will just go on the record as if this makes the edit that I got a similar text from Paige as she got there.
I was like, I totally forgot that this was in this movie.
Yeah.
It completely misunderstands what a healthy relationship would look like.
But I mean, Quentin Tarantino probably still misunderstands what a relationship is supposed to look like.
I don't know.
Yeah, me either.
I have no idea.
Me either.
But very possibly. I would not be surprised. The main rumor I've heard about him that is almost definitely a rumor and probably not true is that his bed is shaped like a foot. And that sounds like something someone made up. Anyway, the movie doesn't understand healthy relationships, but it also completely sidesteps every other romance movies,
Paige.
Like Pitfall.
Sidesteps.
Yeah,
it's
sidesteps.
Gotta be foot related.
Because
really?
feet.
Okay.
We just got a really nice foot massager and we named it Quentin.
Oh, Paige, tell me that's true. Is that true? Tell me it's true.
It is true. Jake's probably using it in the living room.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
It's like real fancy. I love it so much. It was a gift from a friend.
Paige, you got to feed Quentin your toes. Was this friend Quentin Tarantino? Hang on.
No.
Where's the camera, Quentin? Where is it? Where is it, Tarantino's? Tarantino's toes?
It's a friend. We were helping them move and I picked it up. I was like, oh, I've been looking at getting one of these because my feet are fucked from all my years of retail. And she was like, that's the best thing I've ever bought. And I don't feel like moving it. So you should take it. And I was like, yes. And then we brought it home.
Also be careful because sometimes if you put your feet in it, you feel Quentin Tarantino's ghost dick. So like, watch out.
Hey, if that's what it feels like, I volunteer as tribute because this thing is from the gods. It feels so good. Anyway, it avoids any other romance movies pitfall of
trying to actually show any romance,
like arguments or breaking up.
Yeah, none of it.
It shows a lot of sex and passion and not a lot of working through relationship stuff. But in that, they never break up. There's never a question. It's like, we're in this together. It doesn't fucking matter. To the point where like James Gandolfini in the scariest I have ever seen him ever, even today he was scary. This is almost a horror virgin movie.
Yeah.
Shows up and is like, where are the fucking drugs? And damn near kills her. And she's like, no, I'll never give up on him. And you're like, girl, you've known each other for like 4 days. Like
literally 4 days. And you've been married half of that time.
Like,
maybe don't corkscrew this guy to death. Just tell him where this guy you just met went.
Yeah. Oh my God. This movie is a bad decision parade.
Yes.
Like every single person in it makes the worst decisions possible. And you kind of just watch it like, oh no. no. But that's after 20 minutes of like, this is the best first date I've ever seen.
I know. I was like, this first date never ends. I love it. It's great.
I love it. It was so good. And that's sexy. Damn.
I mean,
a couple of them.
Yeah, I mean,
Good for that. This will score on the roar scale, if not the romance scale.
if not, it'll be a 1 on the romance scale for T, but I will rate it more than a 1 on that roar scale. But we'll get there at the end.
Yeah,
Paige,
for sure.
I really did appreciate that this movie really didn't care what its title was so aggressively. It showed
Not at
zero
all.
romance at all. I was like, that's brave. That's brave.
I mean, here's the one thing I will give it. And I feel the same way about The Fall Guy, where, because Jeff argued that The Fall Guy wasn't a romance. I'm like, I argue it is, mainly because the pieces, the things that he's doing are moved forward by him trying to save his relationship with her, right?
Yeah.
I feel like this movie in some ways is the same, where everything bad happens because he falls for her and is like, I am going to do a crazy thing because I am probably suffering a mental health crisis and she has entered my life and I want to keep her. And them keeping their idea of what their perfect relationship would be literally results in the death of multiple people. And so it's like, while yes, I don't think it's romantic, I do think within the movie, the characters think it's romantic. And
They
that's
do.
kind of a different, where their motivation is always each other.
Yes.
Like, which is a crazy thing in this kind of a movie.
They do fully choose each other this
A
whole
hundo.
movie. You're right.
Yes.
And I do, guys, I love a movie where they commit and hold to it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, shoot, what movie was that we just did? Oh, Crazy Rich Asians is sort of like that. They never really don't choose each other in that movie either.
Right.
And I really do love that when a couple, like, early on is in it and they stay in it. And it's other factors. You know, in the Crazy Rich Asians, it was like
Classism.
Yeah, classism and sort of the culture that they were both born into. And in this one, it's like cocaine and shit. Yeah.
Cocaine and guns and shit. But I mean, hey, I love a good gangster movie. This is like if a romance tried to happen in a gangster movie.
This was like, hey guys, I promise it's not actually a romance movie. We called it that so your girlfriend
Right.
would go.
Sure.
It's called True Romance, but it's none of that. It's none of that. But you see Patricia Arquette's boobies, and I think Christian Slater's ass, ladies. So, like,
Oh, yeah.
let's do this.
Well, and okay, this is going to be a crazy take, and I need you to think within yourself, reach inside, and know the truth.
Gary Oldman didn't need the glass eye to be extra weird.
No, I'm
Okay,
always
sorry.
in favor of Gary Oldman looking the weirdest he could possibly look.
I thought he was in Harry Potter. I thought he was like, I didn't know. I was like, was he in Azkaban again? What's going on?
His accent is, I don't know what it's from. It's bonkers. No, here's my hot wild take. This is the movie Gigli wanted to be.
Oh, Paige, that is so accurate. That is accurate.
Right?
Because Gigli is a similar story, but
Right.
not terrible.
Right.
And this isn't a good, well, I wouldn't even go as far as to say that this isn't a good movie. I do think it's watchable. There are some redeeming things to it. I do think the constant use of the N-word is too much.
Troubling.
Yeah.
That'll get to you for sure.
Outside of that, I do think it's watchable.
But Gigli also had a lot of slurs in it, if you recall.
I know. I think
Yeah.
that makes it similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in order for me to get through this scene, I was like having to look at every scene like, remember when we talked about what animals we could beat up? And it was like,
Yes.
guys think they can beat up kangaroos and shit. It's like, it's always like, it's way more than you think you could beat up. Like, you
Right.
can't take a lion or whatever.
Right.
It was pretty much Quentin Tarantino doing a writing exercise of if I was locked in the room with and then put in a very ominous, scary thing, like
Right.
a drug dealer who wants to, and whatever, and I have to get out of it or whatever.
Ooh,
How do I
that's
perfectly
interesting.
get out of that situation? And that is essentially every scene. And some scenes he doesn't. Like when he is his dad, I am saying Quentin Tarantino is Christian Slater's dad. It's like, what's the most badass way to handle that situation?
Right.
Knowing you're not going to get out of it. And so he writes himself that way in that scene. And then that's like a vignette for this movie. And then the next vignette is like Patricia Arquette with Tony Soprano, right? And it's like,
Right.
what would she have to do to get out of this scene and not die, right? And so it's like,
Yeah.
in the most badass way. And that's why she gets like real fucked up in that scene.
She
man.
gets real
Anyway,
fucked
So that's
in
like,
that scene.
I looked at this movie that way. Like every scene is sort of like a vignette of machismo-ish, like, this is like the most difficult situation you could ever be in. How do I get out of it? Or how do I die in the most badass way? And it's like, there's always one focal point in every scene. It's not always Christian Slater, but it's like, that's the character who has to like get out or die in the most badass way.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was an interesting like scene study almost. Like in like writing groups where they'll give each other like, all right, write a scene where it's 3 characters. One has to get up out of a locked room and the other 2 characters are like so scary that the other person can't get away. Like, how do you write that scene? And everyone comes back and gives their scenes and then this makes that movie.
Right. Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that is what this is. And like in some scenes, it's incredibly successful. In others, it's not.
I agree. And I think some of the scenes, I think if Quentin Tarantino wrote them now, maybe.
Yes, they'd be completely
and not
different.
in fucking 91 or 92, whenever he actually wrote this script.
He probably wrote this in like 87 to 89. Yeah.
Right? When like, and I'm not saying it was ever right, but like that was a time at which movies said that shit, you know?
Right.
So like, I get that it's not right, but I get why he might have thought that it was okay, you know? So if you update that, if you update the script from like all just the general racist shit, like I think it's great. I think the script is a lot of fun and it's sort of great.
I also think every writer has their strengths. Some people are great at character. Some people are great at scene description. Some people are great at dialogue. Early in Quentin Tarantino's career, dialogue was his thing.
Yeah.
It always has been. Like that is his like main thing that he is really good at. And over time, the longer you write, you will develop other skills. And I feel like if you want to do a deep dive into his filmography, which not everyone does, I understand not everyone likes it, I get it. But his later movies, in fact, his most recent one, I think is his best study in character. And it's not as clear-cut plot-wise, but I feel like he truly understands who the people he is writing about are. I think in this movie, everyone starts to sound kind of the same.
Yeah.
Because they're all him.
Yeah.
Like, you're hearing every character as Quentin Tarantino. And again, this is his first or second script.
Yeah.
So, like, it's super early. And you're hearing it through the lens of Tony Scott, because Tony's the one directing it, right?
But the being good at dialogue, that comes through this early on in his career, because the dialogue, the back and forth between the person who either has to die amazingly or get out of this impossible situation, and the person who's putting them in that situation, it's always great. It's crisp. It's really quick back and forth. And it's like clever and fun.
Right. And I think when we think about like, okay, if he was writing this today, I think A, a lot of those slurs and a lot of those things change, I would hope. B, I think your characters become a little more diversified in their voice, even if that dialogue is still great, because I think that's a skill he's acquired as he's continued to make movies. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about this one. It's still interesting. It doesn't hold up amazing, but there are parts of it that are really good and scenes that are really interesting, and I'm glad we get to talk about it.
Me too. The only thing I'm left wondering now, as we've sort of gotten to this point of the episode, is what the fuck happened to the keyboard from the movie Delirious?
Right.
And did Quentin Tarantino steal it in like 91 or whatever that movie came out? Paige, if you had it, we'd be rich.
I'm working on it.
But maybe we should go to this movie scene by scene, Paige.
Let's do it. We get a very, very short credit with weird steel drum music. And then we get Christian Slater sitting at a bar trying to talk to a lady who looks very much like Patricia Arquette will look later in this film. And he is just talking at her about his interests, because that's very much who this character is. And as much as that is definitely a personification of Quentin Tarantino at this time, I would assume, I do think that it's funny that the movie understands that most of the time that would not work. And that's why he's not really successful with ladies.
Yeah, because he just like talks at them and asks them no questions about themselves.
Right.
And really, I think if I was her, I would have left that scene wondering, does that guy really just want to fuck Elvis? Like,
I think he does. I think Quentin Tarantino might want to fuck Elvis. And I think if I said that to his face, he'd be like, yeah. Like, I don't even think he'd be offended. I think he'd be like, who doesn't?
After watching this movie, am forced to agree with that assessment. I don't know, but that makes sense to me.
I don't don't know. But he basically makes it clear to this woman at the bar that he is going to go to a movie screening where they're watching 3 Sonny Chiba movies in a row, which honestly sounds like a fucking great time.
I mean, he asked her to go. I mean, he was like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Would you like to join me? And she's like, no, never.
Well, she's like, you want me to go see a kung fu movie? He's like, I want you to see 3 kung fu movies.
Which I thought was low-key adorable. Like, that's how you answer that.
Yeah.
Like, no, I didn't ask you on one date. I asked you in 3 movie dates tonight.
I asked you on 3 days.
Which means we're watching 3 movies, and it's our 3rd date. So, you know what I'm saying?
I think that bears out for how the rest of this goes.
Babe, I don't know if that Foley came through, but that was me
For your
unzipping my hoodie. But just, for the Foley out there, we could leave that in if it came through.
Yeah. Anyway, so he goes alone. The credits start back up again, at which point, if you're watching this for the first time, this second set of credits, you'll be like, motherfucker, everybody's in this.
I know.
Everyone
literally
is in this.
I wrote, this is a murderer's row of huge actors at this point in the credits.
And here's the craziest part of this movie is that, like, they're the biggest actors you've ever heard of playing bit parts, because this is early enough in their career that that's what they were getting booked for. And who could have known how famous all these people would be later on?
I know,
and
right?
So there's like no non-famous people in this movie, to be honest with. Like, even with the exception of some of the gunmen at the end, every single person you meet, bit part or otherwise, is insanely famous.
Yeah.
And that is a wild viewing experience.
Dude, Brad Pitt's credit in this has to have the character he played, because it was such like a small part. His credit is Floyd, Dick's roommate.
Yes.
They're like, he was that guy, and it's fucking Brad Pitt. Like, that's how famous. Whatever. I mean, he probably wasn't super famous in 93 when this came out.
Right.
But super famous now.
Same with Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson was still climbing the ranks.
I know. He's in the movie for like 30 seconds.
He has 2 lines. And they're incredible. And then he's gone. And you're like, no, what? No.
I was like, is this Deep Blue Sea all over again? We got Michael Rappaport, and Samuel L. Jackson went out way too early.
Michael Rappaport, one of the only other people to survive.
Who are you going to trust?
Yeah, who are you going to trust? Not Michael Rappaport. He don't got your back. He's going to run. Anyway.
Man, when Michael Rappaport got the part at the end and then they go to the drug deal, I was like, oh, Rappaport gonna die. Like, he gonna die. Like, there's no reason for him to go to the drug deal at the end.
The part of T.J. Hooker, which is amazing. Anyway, at this point, we get Alabama's voiceover, Patricia Arquette as Alabama, where she's like, I moved to Detroit from Florida. I never thought I would find true romance in Detroit. And sometimes the world seems so shitty, but sometimes it goes the other way too. And sometimes romance can be tough, but sometimes it goes the other way too. Understatement of the century. That she's like, sometimes love is hard. And then 3 days later, they're in a standoff over a suitcase of cocaine.
Well, they're not,
madness.
because he went to the bathroom right before the guns
to
came
talk to
in.
Elvis,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
He went to go, quote, talk to Elvis.
He went to talk to
which
Elvis.
I guess is probably just code for cocaine, right?
You could probably read it that way. The only reason I don't is because him talking to Elvis occurs even before they get the cocaine, and I don't think he's rich enough to buy cocaine back home.
That's fair.
I think he is delusional.
I know, he is delusional. I do love that Elvis is like the oracle in this movie, and all he really wants Christian Slater to do is just get his ass out there and be taking care of business.
Be in a flash and just be cool. I also love that we never see Elvis's full face. We're just seeing him kind of like blurred out in the mirror or standing behind somebody or off to the side.
Well, you know why they had to do that though, Paige?
No.
Because when they filmed this in 93,
he was supposed to be dead.
Well, no, I mean,
but people couldn't know he was alive and living on that island with Tupac.
Well, yeah, he actually, I don't know if you know this, it's in the fun facts though, so maybe I'm usurping a fun fact, but like he shot all his own scenes, but like he was like, you can't show my face because I've been dead for 20 years. I don't even know what he sounds like. What does Elvis sound like?
I can't do an Elvis. I can't.
I'm not
I'm not
try.
even gonna try.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna try. It's fine. So he goes to see his kung fu movies alone, and Patricia Arquette comes in and sits behind him and is like spilling popcorn on him, smoking in the theater, real distracting. But she's gorgeous, and so she's like, what did I miss? Okay, tell me about the movies. stays for all the movies.
Yeah. I mean, she's getting paid, Paige.
Well, we don't know that yet.
She's at work.
We don't know that
Sure,
yet.
okay,
And
yeah, that's fair.
He
We don't.
doesn't know that.
He
right?
does not.
He does not know that. And so they leave the theater and she's like really excited. She's like, that was great, but do you want to go have a piece of pie with me and let's talk about the movie? And he's like, okay, yeah, let's go.
He was like, oh my God, you want to start a podcast? Let's do this.
Let's do this.
But yeah, like if a hot girl who just sat through 3 Kung Fu movies and like comes out of it like seeming like she enjoyed herself because she's like doing Kung Fu on their way out.
I think she did.
Me too. Paige, I agree.
There is a point later where she talks about some of the things that were just for the job and some of the things that she enjoyed. And the Kung Fu movies are not one of the things she lists. She's like, I don't really like the Partridge Family. That was just for the job. Implying that like everything else I did enjoy and I liked hanging out with you.
I mean, she tells him she loves him. So she is falling in love tonight, whether she is a sex worker or not, right?
Yeah, sure. And I think that's an unwise thing to say to someone you've just met. But that's beside the point. That does not diminish that she has actual feelings for him. Whether love is the appropriate thing to put on that, or if they should go on more dates first, they should definitely go on more dates first. You know, she does seem to actually like him outside of the job. So they sit and have pie. She answers some questions about themselves. They're talking. They're having a good time. He's talking too much about Elvis still because, again, it's the Quentin Tarantino analog.
The scene picks up exactly after he owned or it like talked about wanting to have sex with Elvis the first time we see him talking about Elvis. So I have to assume it picks up them eating pie, him just having said, you know, I wouldn't have sex with any dude, but I'd have sex with Elvis, which is what
Elvis.
he said right before saying exactly this next line to the first lady.
Yep.
It's crazy.
And she answers. Now, there is one potential slur in this scene, but it's unclear because he says, what are your turnoffs? And she says Persians. And if that's people, then that's terrible. But if it's rugs or cats, that's acceptable. So like, and they never clarify if it's rugs or cats. I would hope
maybe she has an allergy. I don't know, Paige.
Maybe. I mean, they got them flat faces and you know,
are
Persian rugs can be kind of rough.
Okay.
Yeah, no, yes, cats, of course.
Okay.
Anyway, he takes her to his job, which is a comic book store, and they're there kind of after dark looking at like old comics, and she seems genuinely into it, and they're like listening to music, and then they go home and they bang it the fuck out.
Yeah. This is their third date, Paige.
I know. But this is for the time, hot sex scene.
It's very Top Gun, but it's way sexier. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because it's like pretty backlit and like blue light.
Yes.
But it is kind of sexy.
No complaints.
Like you do see more of, I guess, what would have been, you know, the top. You see like Christian Slater's ass, and I think you see Patricia Arquette's boobs at one point.
Yeah.
And they're going at it. I honestly think the phone booth is sexier. Like
the phone booth is super sexy.
Yeah.
We will get to that. For me, in this one, it's more of the close-up of people licking each other's skin, and you don't know where exactly on the skin it is.
Yeah, which I think is also a Top Gun thing.
Oh, that's right, because of the belly button thing. Anyway.
And then Hot Shots did it pretty good too. Yeah.
I was picturing the olive and the catch, and I was
Same.
like, that's not Top Gun, Paige. That's Hot Shot.
You know how they got that shot, Paige?
No.
She can actually heat up that much on her stomach, and they just like shot it practical. Yeah.
They just fried an egg there. Yeah. Anyway, so and I do love that they end the sex scene just sitting on the side of the bed holding hands. Is actually very sweet.
It was really kind of cute. Yeah, there's a lot to, I think, like in the beginning of this movie. And then it starts to like,
the first 20 minutes, you're just like, all right, Quentin Tarantino wrote this. And then later you're like, oh, Quentin Tarantino wrote this.
Oh, yeah, Quentin Tarantino totally wrote this. Yeah, totally wrote this. Yeah. I thought at first we were going to get a Quentin Tarantino version of like Before Sunrise. And then what I realized what we were getting was Quentin Tarantino's Delirious. And then it was a different excitement because I was like, fuck yes, I'm here for the ride.
What if I were to tell you that I think this is Quentin Tarantino's Before Sunrise?
You'd be wrong.
Well, only because it takes 4 days.
Exactly.
Because if you think about Before Sunrise, where it's like just what would happen to these people in this night, if this movie took place in one night, which you could do, like that's Quentin Tarantino's Before Sunrise, and I don't hate that, honestly. First thing to go is that slur speech, just gone.
Get rid of it.
We don't have time for it.
Yeah.
There's one day. Anyway, he seems to live on like a second or third story where you can kind of climb out onto a billboard.
Which is so cool. I thought that was so cool.
Very cool.
I've never seen that in my life, and I was like, hell yeah.
I've seen it a couple times in real life, but never that close. But I think it only works if you're in a city with a ton of billboards.
Yeah.
And billboards on buildings as opposed to freestanding. But she goes out there to sit and he's like, why are you crying? And she basically is like, I have to come clean. I am a sex worker. Somebody hired me.
His boss, who he actually did say his boss was like this great guy and like.
Yeah, she's like, your boss hired me because he felt like you needed to get laid and it was your birthday and basically he thinks you're sad. But at the end of the day, I had a really good time and like,
Well, I know,
paid or not, I'm kind of into it and I really like you. And to his credit, I actually really like that in this scene, he's like, oh, okay, well, I still had a good time. Like, even when he finds out he's like paid, he's like, still had a great time. I'm still great.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't care.
Doesn't
This
care.
is all coming out because she actually does really like him.
Right.
And wants
Yeah.
to be in a relationship with him. And like, it's coming out, like she's being honest that it's been like she's been on 4 dates, I think.
She's been in town. She's
4
been
days.
a sex
That's what
worker
it
for
was.
4 days. This is
Yeah.
her third date.
Yeah, so like she's being very honest and she's like, I don't want to do that when I'm with someone I want to be with. I'm like 100% monogamous, so like let's be together. Like,
Right.
So I understand why he's not like mad. I mean, he's just like,
Right.
well, it is weird that I thought I had a great night with someone who I thought I could be in a relationship with, and now that person's telling me they're a sex worker. But he doesn't seem to care that she was a sex worker, and honestly, like,
No,
she's
I
very
love
upfront
that.
about her history with it, and he's like, cool. So like, let's do this.
Well, the only part he does care a little bit later, but not against her at all. He cares about exacting revenge on the people who hurt her. And
Yes.
that's how he cares.
Right.
But like, which is an intense escalation and troubling. But at least in this moment, what they get to is she's like, I was paid to go on a date with you, but I actually had a good time. I would like to actually continue seeing you. And he's like, I would like to continue seeing you too. If you're fucking serious, let's jump in. Let's fucking go for it. Cause I fucking love you. And she's like, or she says it first, I love you. I love you. They get literal married the next day.
Because that's true romance, Paige. Come on.
That's a bad decision, y'all.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And then they immediately get tattoos of each other's names. Worst decision.
Paige, they just got married.
Worst decision.
That's a lifelong commitment.
Here's the thing. We usually ask, do you think these people are still together? I do, and we should all be concerned because anyone in their path could be dead.
Paige, there's no way either of them are still alive.
That's
like,
fair. That's
they're
fair.
definitely dead.
Yeah, that's absolutely probably true. Mm-hmm. Or he's Nick Fury. Just kidding. Notice how the days are shorter, but your to-do lists aren't? Power through your busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. From breakfast to dinner and anything in between, Factor has easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. Whether you like routine or you enjoy mixing things up. I know I do. Factor has you covered with 35 different delicious meals every week and over 60 additional convenience options that you can add to your box, like keto cookies, pressed juices, and smoothies. Pro tip, those smoothies are amazing. Perfect for breakfast. Don't let shorter days slow you down. Stay energized with America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. Factor lets you do you. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize your protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well-balanced. And check this out. I'm a busy lady, constantly on the go, recording a million podcasts. And after it, I'm tired. I don't want to have to cook. So it's good to know that I have a delicious, ready-to-eat Factor meal as close as my fridge. And Jake loves them too. So head to factormeals.com/romancingthepod50 and use code romancingthepod50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That's code romancingthepod50 at factormeals.com/romancingthepod50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
Are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and seller at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that translates comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. These deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habits of top performers, which leads to better outcomes, like more pipeline, higher win rates, and larger deals. We call this deep sales. And we've built the first deep sales platform with the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/trial. That's linkedin.com/trial for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/trial and get started.
Anyway, so they're getting the tattoos. And when she was kind of explaining that she really likes him, she mentioned Drexel. And he's like, who is Drexel? And she's like, well, that's my pimp. And he's like, okay, like, tell me about this pimp. And she's like, he's basically a drug dealer. He's not a good guy. We will find out it is Gary Oldman. We cut to a motel where Gary Oldman has shown up to do a drug deal with, I believe Marty is his, I guess, consigliere, bodyguard, other guy, henchman.
His second? Yeah, whatever. I don't know the terminology in the world.
Me neither. But Samuel L. Jackson is there with another person who I know I've seen in other stuff, but I cannot think of their name right now. But the debate in this scene is essentially whether or not eating pussy is shameful. And my favorite is Samuel L. Jackson be like, I'll eat everything. Like,
yeah.
No shame. I'm getting laid. I'm eating it all. Yeah. I'm here for the buffet.
Yeah.
And I was like, amazing. And then he literally gets shot seconds later and you're like, no, come on. He had correct opinions about this one thing.
And of course, Quentin Tarantino being so offended by someone eating pussy.
Here's the thing.
He kills him immediately.
I don't think he is. I just think that character had to die and he had to fill the dead air.
Yeah.
Because here's the Quentin Tarantino, something he's gotten better at in his later years as a writer and director is letting a scene.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, probably just time and practice.
One would assume. Yeah.
One would assume.
He starts with the big toe, though. That's what they say about Quentin Tarantino. He starts at the very bottom. He has gotten so much better about letting a scene breathe. And like, yeah, you don't have to fill every single second with dialogue. Inglourious Bastards did that masterfully.
Early Quentin Tarantino, no one is not talking at any given time.
Right.
So like if you look at like Reservoir Dogs where they're talking that whole conversation about tipping and whether or not tipping is like useful in society or valid or whatever. There's a whole thing about Madonna and Like a Virgin, and it's just to fill time and air. And he's gotten better about that. But in this movie, this is what this is eating pussy shameful or not? Now, here's what I will say. Gary Oldman sides with Samuel L. Jackson.
Of course.
So I feel like there's a coalition of pussy eating that is immediately abandoned by shotgun. Because you live by the gun, you die by the gun, apparently.
Apparently.
So we now have seen Gary Oldman, aka Drexel, in action. We're like, oh shit, this is a bad guy. Because he just came in, shot those two dudes, stole their drugs and the money, and is like...
He kind of murders everybody, yeah.
Murders everybody, right?
But this is where he gets the drugs, I think, that we get later on, right?
Yes.
So, like, yeah.
Yep.
We're just tracking that journey. Like, everyone in this scene is new.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
And the tracking that this follows this is where the drugs come from.
Right. And they will be there accidentally, essentially.
Yes.
And then be there accidentally for the rest of this movie. So we cut back to the apartment where Alabama and Clarence are just sitting and watching Kung Fu movies on TV. Everything's fine. But you can tell that Christian Slater, aka Clarence, is like a little upset, a little on edge.
Yeah.
Not doing good. So he goes to the bathroom, and then the ghost or real Elvis, depending on your interpretation of the film, is like, so can you just live with the fact that her pimp is alive and hurt her? You're just okay with that? Would a man be okay with that? And you're like, oh no. This is about to be very bad.
He's like, wouldn't you rather be taking care of business, brother?
Yes, in a flash, like my logo on all of the things I own in Graceland.
So famously, his guns, too. Like, he had pistols made for his bodyguards page. Like, you can look them up online. In fact, you could probably buy one.
Probably.
And they're probably hella expensive. But, yeah.
I mean, yeah, even his pool had TCB with the lightning bolt.
Taking care of business, baby.
Taking care of business.
It's that kind of attitude that had him die on his crapper at 42 or whatever.
It was slightly older than 42, I think, wasn't it?
I don't know, man.
I don't know. But I know that there were also drugs and a lot of other things involved in that.
Yeah, of course.
Like peanut butter and banana sandwiches and whatever. Like the fried My mom had one. It was not bad. They serve them at Graceland if you go visit.
Ugh, why?
But yeah, basically Elvis talks him into doing a murder, doing a full murdering.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, it really is just go get her stuff, right? And if anything happens,
Well,
it
that's what
happens,
he tells
right?
her.
Yeah. I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think Elvis, and when I say Elvis, please know that I mean Christian Slater's toxic masculinity talking to him.
His shoulder goblin as
Yes.
Elvis.
Yes. I
Yes.
think if he had shown up and Jamaican Oldman had been had stood down and just given her stuff to him and been like, fine, the empty envelope is fine, he would have taken that as a win and would have walked away, and that would have been the end of it.
So potentially, I think that's how I used to read this movie. On this watch, I'm like, oh, he was going to kill him no matter what. That's why the envelope is empty. He is inciting him.
But he doesn't have a gun on him, man. That's so, I mean, but it is, he does have the delirious keyboard, so he knows he's not going to die.
Right.
There you
Yeah.
go.
It's bonkers. But he goes under the auspices of, I'm just going to get your stuff and I'll be right back.
Yeah.
And it is fully nightclub / brothel / clubhouse / there are sex workers there are drugs there's music and dancing there's just a whole lot of things, and the worst hung lamp I've ever seen.
Yeah, like the establishing shot of the outside of this building is like the Police song Roxanne.
Yes.
It's like a lady dancing in the window just in red light. You're like, oh, I know what this is.
Yeah.
You know? And then you walk in and you're like, okay, I don't know what Gary Oldman's doing.
I mean, cultural appropriation
Yes,
at minimum.
yes, at
but
minimum.
who knows what else he's doing?
He keeps saying he's Jamaican, right? Like that's the thing?
No, she says he pretends to be. So he's actively pretending to be
Yes,
Jamaican.
yeah.
Yes.
That's like his cover.
He is not actually.
No, he's from Detroit.
That's his cover. Yes, he is clearly a white man from Detroit.
He probably grew up in the Detroit suburbs, like rich, like Kid Rock or some shit, and is just pretending to be middle class.
Yeah, well, or lower than middle at this point.
Well, at this point, yeah, I guess, my bad. But I was thinking about Kid Rock,
I mean,
unfortunately.
anyway, now I had to wonder, Set Deck must have done this. It must have been written into the script. There's a hanging swag lamp that is hanging literally right above the table. And I would assume you would do that so that you could more easily see your drugs as you're cutting them, or snorting them. But it's hung so that it's like when you're sitting on the couch, the lamp part is like face level. So like as they push and swing this lamp at each other, it's almost hitting Gary Oldman in the face, but it means he can grab it. He can flip it up and shine the lamp on people.
Yeah.
He pulls it to the side and shines it. It's a real interesting thing in this scene that I don't think anyone would ever have in an actual building.
It is weird, but it's like they're throwing the chandelier
Yeah.
back and forth, honestly.
Yeah, and Gary Oldman is basically like, oh, so you're the person that Alabama has shacked up with. Cool, sit down, let's negotiate. Like, I don't care. Just pay me and take her is basically,
Yeah.
he's like, she is property, I don't care. And I think Christian Slater, oddly enough, is coming to this with, she's not property, I'm here to get her stuff, I'm not paying anything. I'm just going. Like,
Yeah.
she's not coming back here, and I'm taking the stuff. White knighty, but also I do like that he does not at any point offer to negotiate for her. Because in his mind, she doesn't have a price.
Yeah. I mean, I think you might be right. He is looking for a fight.
Yeah, he's looking for a fight. But they invite him. They're like, come sit down, have Chinese food. And he's like, no. And Gary Oldman's like, see, if you had just relaxed, I would have figured that you were so badass that you didn't have anything to care about. And that's why you're not scared of me. And at this point, Christian Slater's like, oh, I'm not scared of you. Because, like, I'm not giving you money. I'm not here to negotiate with you. I'm fucking leaving. And at which point, Gary Oldman's like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, what did you think this is, right?
I would have loved for Marty to look over at him and be like, who the fuck do you think you are, Gary Oldman?
Right.
Like, what is going on with this performance?
Yes. They get into a full-on fist fight, and it's 2-on-1.
I mean, they sort of kick his ass. They kick Christian Slater's ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, they gleam his cube for sure.
Yes. Now, he did have a gun.
Oh, did he?
Because it's his gun that he pulls out in this fight.
Oh, I thought he gets Gary Oldman's gun. Okay, all right.
No, yeah, Gary Oldman's got like a shotgun.
Okay.
And maybe he does. Maybe it's one of the extra ones on him and he grabs it off of him. But we see him pull it out of like his waistband, and nobody patted him down when he went in there.
Okay.
So
yeah, I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. They get into a huge ass fight, and just as it seems like the fight is about to end and Gary Oldman's going to kill him, he pulls out his wallet and has his driver's license and is like, I know where you live. Send my guys, go get her, bring her dumbass back here, and then I'll hide this body, essentially. And as he's doing that, that's when Christian Slater pulls his gun out, and from the floor shoots Gary Oldman's dick off.
Right in the dick, guys.
Yeah, shoots Marty, the guy who he was about to send to go get Alabama, and then shoots Gary Oldman in the head.
Yeah.
And then tells one of the other sex workers there, like, please go get Alabama's things. Get him, like, with the gun. And he's like, and you'll be fine. Otherwise, you'll be dead too. So, like, give me the shit. And he leaves. He comes home with her suitcase and a whole bunch of food. And he's like, I'm so hungry. Like, I just killed a bunch of people. So hungry. Amazing.
He's getting like double cheeseburgers and like shakes and shit. Yeah.
Sounds so good.
It does.
Honestly.
Honestly.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Get me some In-N-Out right now. Let's go.
I know. I was just thinking that. I was like, oh, In-N-Out. But she goes to open the suitcase because she's like, oh, finally clean clothes. And what do they find in the suitcase? All the drugs. The drugs they stole from Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Like horrifically robbing his wife of a good time. But at this point, they're like, oh no, what do we do? So we cut to a security stop where we meet a security guard played by Dennis Hopper. And our first clue that he's insanely racist should be that his dog's name is Rommel.
I did notice that. Yeah.
So I do think the movie's like heads up a little bit.
Yeah. Rommel wasn't on the right side in World War II. Let's just say it that way.
No. And we don't fully know why Christian Slater didn't talk to him for years. We get some inclination that there was an alcohol problem and some other things, but it's entirely possible that the racism played a part. Who knows?
Yeah.
We don't have the character Bible to read. So he comes home to his trailer, and who should be there but Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette, who are like, hey, you used to be a cop. We need you to find out if the cops find out about all these murders we did.
Literally that, yes.
Oopsie daisies. And so he makes some calls and also is like, oh, congratulations on getting married yesterday. Like, it's been a busy couple days.
Yeah, and no matter what, 2 days ago, you got married yesterday?
2
Great.
days
Fantastic.
ago. Yeah.
Nice to meet you, daughter, who makes out with me longer than a daughter should.
Oh, that was super weird, and we'll get to it in that scene. Like, we'll get there in just a sec.
Ugh.
But first, we got to go to Los Angeles, where we meet Michael Rappaport, a.k.a. Dick Ritchie.
Honestly, guys, turning in the performance that lands him apart on the ultra famous, what was it, BJ Newhart? What was the show?
Oh, TJ Hooker. TJ Hooker,
that's what it was. TJ Hooker, yeah.
I thought you meant in real life. I was like...
No, but in the scene, he's like doing an audition.
Right.
And like, that's the audition that gets him the part.
Yeah.
And guys...
And it's a terrible audition.
It's not great. It's not great.
Where did you come from? He appeared like magic. Shoot him. That's basically the whole thing.
Honestly, Paige, we got to get you on an episode of TJ Hooker. Am I right, guys?
That's one of those things where sometimes you're like, it was a more innocent time. Because there was a TV show called TJ Hooker and no one made fun of that.
Paige, I refuse to believe that no one made fun of that. Like,
I'm sure some people did.
They have to have, yes. Yeah.
Not enough to take it off TV though. So like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, like watching this movie, I was like, shit. The bar you had to clear to be a revolutionary filmmaker in '93 was so low.
Oh yeah.
All you had to do, Paige, was like close story circles well.
Yeah.
That's all you had to do.
Anyway, and Dennis Hopper's like, yeah, no, they think it was just a drug thing. So you guys are basically free. So you get to go. But as long as you don't know that drug dealer. And they're like, no, what drugs? What are you talking about? And he's like, all right, have a good honeymoon.
Yeah. Hope I don't get shot in a few hours. Bye. Love you, son.
Vaya con Dios.
But he does the thing that the dad does every time in every movie before the dad gets killed, where he's like, son, I want you to know I love you and I'm proud of you. And I want you to do your best and just always know your daddy loves you. I'm going to be here forever. I'm going to live forever.
Yeah.
But I love you and I'm proud of you.
Take this picture while I cough into this napkin. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, Dennis Hopper's done. He's done so.
Before you drive away, do you have time for one last game of catch?
Do you mind if I cough some blood into this handkerchief really quick? Like it's so clear he's about to die.
Hey, I'll see you on the other side. Yeah, no, you won't. Nope. But we do, as he's leaving, conveniently for plot reasons.
Tell your mom I'm sorry.
Tell your mom I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'll be staying at my friend Dick Ritchie's address in Hollywood. I left it on the fridge, the full address with the phone number. If you need to reach us or find us, that's where we'll be. Remember, it's the address that's on that phone number that's on the fridge. Great. And then we get that really weird kiss.
Yeah, Patricia Arquette makes out with Dennis Hopper, and like, I get it. That's fucking easy writer right there. But keep it in your pants, Patricia Arquette. You're not on set. You're in a movie. We got to play the character.
Keep it in your wonderful pants. I want every single outfit she has in this movie, especially the see-through like blue thing she's got on for most of the rest of the movie with that like shiny blue bra. Give it to me. I can't wait. Please, I want to wear this.
Patricia, if you're out there, hook a sister up.
Patricia, you know what it's like to carry around big naturals. Help a sister out. You know what it's like to try and find shirts. Anyway, meanwhile, they leave. Who should show up at the trailer not long after they leave but Christopher Walken? Tongue will slap your brains out trying to get a taste like that, Christopher Walken.
How dare you quote Geely in this movie? How dare you? But this is also something that Geely shares, and that's one scene with Christopher Walken, more or less.
And Christopher Walken is basically like, we're the mob. We know you know something. Your neighbors saw the Cadillac here. I realize they may not have told you anything. I'm definitely gonna kill you. You're not getting out of this alive.
And I'm gonna tell you what I told that cop. I don't know what happened to Natalie Wood.
I don't know. Or do I? I don't know. Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters.
We gotta stop. This is just silly now.
But he's like, I'm gonna kill you. So just tell me. Just tell me. And I'll kill you instead of torturing you. And Dennis Hopper's like, okay, here's what I saw. And he does tell him part of the truth, where he's like,
a little bit of the truth.
A little bit of the truth. Hadn't seen them in 3 years. They showed up, married, they went on their honeymoon. I haven't seen them since. Goodbye. But he doesn't tell them that he has Dick Ritchie's address in Hollywood where you can find us if you need to get a hold of us. Meanwhile, up steps Christopher Walken's number 2, James Gandolfini, being extra terrifying. He's scary as shit in this movie.
He's honestly not his full Gandolfini-ness until this very last scene. But yeah, he is pretty scary in this movie.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh shit, this is where Tony Soprano got to start? Hell yeah.
I mean, honestly, I do think that is a huge part of how he gets The Sopranos is this and a couple other performances. But like, how can you not see this movie and not be like, oh, make that guy the next mobster movie guy?
Oh yeah, because he fucking crushes it.
He's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of guy that you're like, I know why people would do what the mob says, because holy shit. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
But this is where we have this really horrible monologue with a ton of N-words. And essentially it's Dennis Hopper trying to insult Christopher Walken because Christopher Walken's character is Sicilian, and unfortunately, race relations not great. To this day, even there are still problems, and he is banking on essentially him asserting that Sicilians have African or African adjacent, Moorish, I should say, ancestry, that would be insulting to him. And he guesses correctly. And because of that, they just kill Dennis Hopper. Now, what I do kind of like afterwards is when Christopher Walken is like, I haven't killed anybody since 1984, where it's almost like, look at what you made me do.
Yeah, he's so pissed. He's like, I haven't been this mad since 84. Like, I haven't sunk so low because I am like not even middle management anymore. He's like the consigliere to like Blue Lou or whatever. So he's like, killing is beneath me at this point in my career.
Right, you make other people kill, yeah.
Right, but I chose to kill you because fuck you that much, right?
Right.
Which, this is like another scene study of like, how do you die in the most badass way in this situation? And Quentin Tarantino, I think, sees himself in this scene very much as the dad character, right?
Right. And I think in a fucked up way, he's like, him getting mad at this information makes him the racist one. And I was like, no, it's racist on both sides because you shouldn't use the N-word that much or at all, really.
Yeah.
So like,
it's a lot. Dude uses it a lot.
It's all bad, bro. There are many other things you could have said to elicit the same reaction and to do the same thing. This is not the only lane you could have taken to that destination.
No, there's a way better way to tell someone who thinks that they're super white that they actually have some African heritage. 23andMe have been doing it for fucking a decade at this point.
I feel like you don't even have to use that as the thing.
I know.
It could be any number of things,
yes.
Right?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I do think like it would be a really funny, like, we took 25 white power supremacist racists and made them do a 23andMe to figure out where they're from and then like follow their journey as they realize that they're stupid.
I mean, people have done that a couple times, I feel like. There have been TV shows about it, but it's like it's almost like every other white supremacist is like, nuh-uh. And I'm like, yeah-huh. Like all of,
I just want to see like a really uneducated racist try and like see the word Sephardic for the first time and then try and say it.
Good luck.
No, it's Ashkenazi. Guys, it's fine.
Anyway, one of the other mobsters who is played by an American actor, but who only speaks Italian this entire movie, which I think is fascinating and wild. But he basically is like, hey, I found this thing on the fridge. And I do like that his character's arc, even his tiny little character, is that he's the one guy that's actually from Italy, so everyone has to constantly translate things for him.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of funny. But he finds the note. So now they're headed to Hollywood too. But we cut to, like, essentially, I guess, a phone booth on the side of the road.
I got the vibe that they were like close to Vegas or had just left Vegas because it's like in the desert, you know?
Well, and she says that she got those outfits in Vegas.
Yes, true. So they probably just left Vegas and they're going to make it to LA by tomorrow.
Right. And so immediately after this phone call, they bang in that phone booth and like, good for them.
I mean, it did seem semi-secluded. One truck goes by, but it seems like he's pulling the big rig in as it does. So
there's like nothing on. Yeah, he's like honking for them. I was like, yeah. There's like nothing on that highway. So like if you found a deserted phone booth, yes, it would be fairly secluded. Anyway, so they arrive the next day and they show up. We meet Floyd, Michael Rappaport's roommate, a.k.a. Brad Pitt, playing a shockingly accurate stoner for the time.
Yeah, I thought he did a great job with his very small part here in this movie.
Yep. But this is where they then pick up Michael Rappaport and check into the Safari Inn, which is a place that does exist and is still here in all of its glory. It looks exactly the same, and it is like 10 minutes from my house. I drive past it all the time.
That's awesome.
But it is one of those movie places that you can absolutely visit if you want to. It is on Olive in Burbank. But they unpack the cocaine. And they're like, you got our letter, right, Michael Rappaport? You can help us sell all this cocaine? And he was like, I could help you sell a little cocaine, but like, not this.
He's like, I'm not an actor. I'm trying to be an actor. So It's not like I hang out on sets with like famous actors who like do and know how to get cocaine. Like, that's not my life.
Well, and not even just a little cocaine, $200,000 worth of cocaine.
Right.
And it's actually $500,000 worth of uncut, which means that once you cut it, it's $1 million.
At least $1 million, yeah.
You could make $1 million depending on how you cut this. Uncut, it's $500,000. They're selling it for $200,000. So they're even like taking a loss because they just want to get the money and leave. They don't want the cocaine or whatever. And so Michael Rappaport's like, all right, I know like one guy, but like get him on the phone and let's figure out a place to meet. So they call his one guy. It is Bronson Pinchot. They decide to meet at a place with roller coasters. I was not 100% on whether or not it was Magic Mountain or Knott's Berry Farm. It's one of the two. I think it's Knott's.
I've never been to Knott's. I don't know. But it is very much like Balky, right? It's Balky, right?
Yeah, Bronson Pinchot, who famously played Balky on Perfect Strangers, yes.
Who I will say does some pretty great work in this movie. I was a little surprised at how good he was, but largely because in Perfect Strangers, he's more like a silly, like, he's like a comedic character and he doesn't have a lot of range in that show. But he does a lot.
He's been in a bunch of other stuff, and he's actually generally pretty good.
Yeah, he was great.
It's rare that he's bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in this, he does really well. He plays that perfect, like, nervous-y character.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they get him on the roller coaster, and he's like, I got to know where this coke comes from. Like, I have questions, right? And he doesn't handle the roller coaster well, but they feed him a fake story of, like, I have a friend who's a cop. This came into the evidence room. He got it out of the evidence room, and now we're trying to sell it and flip the money. And that's the story they buy, and that's the story he will give the cops later.
Yeah.
It's obviously not the story of what really happened, but sure.
But you gotta lie. I mean, 100% you gotta lie.
Yeah. But so he goes to a phone booth because this is a time before cell phones. And he calls his boss, or rather, it's a time that had car phones at great expense, but not cell phones as we know them today. But so he calls his boss in the car And his boss is like, I don't know, but money, nah. And so Clarence, aka Christian Slater, takes the phone and is like, look, man, I have a ton of coke. It's good coke. I know that you know what's good. I know you know how to move this, or just use it for you. I don't give a shit. Do what you want. But like, you got to trust me. And he's like, okay, but I want a sample bag. We'll set up a time to meet. Cool. They're going to meet at the Beverly Ambassador the next day. Now, if you are a fan of the movie that I'm going to do next week, because we haven't fucking done it, and I have just been wanting to watch it and listening to the soundtrack for weeks, and I don't give a shit if people are going to argue that it's not about romance, I'm going to say that it has enough romance in it to qualify, because why the fuck not? In next week's movie, they say they're at this hotel, but they actually film huge parts of it at a hotel right across the street, or right down the way, I should say, which is the Beverly Hills Hotel. So we'll get a shot of both about 6 years apart between this week and next week.
Huh.
And that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
That they end up in the same place for very different reasons. Anywho, so meanwhile, back at Michael Rappaport's apartment, James Gandolfini is like spying on Brad Pitt. He's just standing outside the door and he's like, hi, can I come in? And Brad Pitt's like, hey, yeah, man, you want to watch some TV? Like,
Totally, come on in, bro. And he's like, are you Dick? And he's like, no, he's like my roommate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I am not. He is my roommate. That's exactly what I am. So it's bad.
It's dumb. Yeah. But I mean, he pretty much gives exactly where they are, because Brad Pitt's like, yeah, they're not here, man. They were here earlier, but they went and they checked into the Safari Inn or whatever. So he like gives them exactly where they are.
Yep. But my favorite is, as James Gandolfini leaves, we get one of Brad Pitt's full lines, only full lines in this movie, which is, don't condescend to me, man. I'll fucking kill you. And which is hysterical for a man that I'm pretty sure is dead by the end of this movie, because I don't think the mob lets him live, even after he tells them where to go later.
We don't see him die, though. I hope he lives. Yeah, he didn't do anything wrong.
Who knows? I mean, anyway, they get back to the hotel. Christian Slater's like, we're supposed to meet this guy at this other hotel at 3, the Beverly Ambassador. I'm going to go get some food and whatever. You shower up, get rested, and then we'll go. And so she goes back into the hotel room. Who's waiting for her? James Gandolfini. Fucking terrifying.
Yeah, man. This scene.
He's so scary in this scene.
Yeah, this scene's nuts. And she sort of walks into it like she expected him to be there. She's fine with it. It's cool.
Right.
Which is probably like a trauma response on some level.
Yes.
Like she's just like so scared she doesn't know what to do. So she's just like sort of playing along.
She's trying to play it cool.
Yeah. But then things get real violent real fast.
Yeah. And he beats the shit out of her.
I mean, she's fighting back too, though. Like,
oh yeah,
I mean, she is taking the brunt of it at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like, oh, he beats her really badly in a way that we do not often see in movies today. And I think in today, if you made this today, you probably wouldn't see as much of this.
Yeah,
but it's brutal, and I think it makes it all the more cathartic when she wins.
Oh yeah,
because they fight all over this room. She manages to get a corkscrew from a pocket knife on the floor. And he's gonna shoot her. She kind of gets him to stand down because she kind of plays that she looks pathetic or whatever. He puts the gun away and then she stabs him in the foot.
Yeah. I mean, he like goads her on. He's like, I'll give you one stab at me.
Yeah.
Because he's expecting her to go for his chest.
Right.
And she's not. She's going for his foot. And she goes like, it goes deep into that shit. Yeah.
Through his foot.
Ugh,
yeah.
That would hurt so bad.
Which, and like at this point she's up, but he throws her through the shower door. That would kill you.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Or at least knock you out. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, God. And she manages to grab soap, gets him in the eye. Eventually, she gets his gun away from him, and she shoots him as many times as she can. And then she takes that gun and beats him to whatever is left of not death with it.
Yeah, I was about to say he's already dead, but yeah.
He's dead, but she beats that corpse until she feels like she don't need to anymore.
Yeah, she works out some feelings on it.
Yeah, in the meantime, Christian Slater has gotten burgers. He makes it back to the room and he hears the gunshots, pulls his gun, gets inside and is like, we got to go right the fuck now.
Yeah.
Because definitely everyone in this motel heard those gunshots and we got to get you the fuck out of here. Like, let's go. So they immediately get in the car. drive to a secluded place by either, I would assume, the Burbank airport if they're actually near the Safari Inn, because it is like right there. But they sit on a couch outside with first aid kit and he kind of cleans her up. It's very sad because she is like brutally beaten. And he's like, I'm so sorry I was not there. He's like kind of devastated about it.
Yeah, she got the shit beat out of her.
It's bad. Meanwhile, they're like, we still got to clean up. We got to get to that meeting. In the interim, Bronson Pinchot is driving with a lady friend, getting some road service.
If you take Paige's meaning.
AAA, as in like,
Yeah, she's going down on him while he's driving very fast up the mountain.
Very fast. Yeah, on Mulholland. And they pull him over. And he realizes that he has the sample bag of Coke on him for the meeting later that day. And he's like, hold this.
Yeah, he's like trying to force her to hold it. And she's like, no. And they're going back and forth. And it spills all over his face and like chest and shoulders and shit.
He's covered in Coke. So they take him in. And unfortunately, our cops are Tom Sizemore and Chris Penn, who is no longer with us, Sean Penn's brother. But Tom Sizemore. And they basically are like, do you want to wear a wire for us? Or do you want to be assaulted sexually in prison? And it's like, that's not great. That shouldn't happen. It's not fun to make light of that. And he's like, I will wear a wire. So they set him up with a wire. They send him to the meeting. Meanwhile, Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette have made it back to Michael Rappaport's apartment, where he finds out that he got that TJ Hooker part. And he's finally going to get to go home to see his girl.
I mean, it was like 100% he was about to die. He like got a letter from his sweet lady back from war or whatever. And is like, she said she'd marry me when we get back stateside. Like, he's about to die.
My dearest Michael Rappaport, I've taken a job on an underwater seafaring vessel.
All we have to do is sail across on the Titanic and we can be together.
She is like cleaned up and put some makeup over her. And he's like, what happened? She's like, I fell playing basketball, which is insane because according to the timeline of the movie, they have only been apart for a couple hours. Like they dropped him off and then I guess played basketball and then came back. Like it's the most unbelievable story ever. And the fact that he's the only one who believes it because everyone else is like, somebody beat that girl up, right? Was it Christian Slater or was it somebody else? Like, I don't know.
I think Michael Rappaport's just like trying to be like, I don't want to get involved. It's not my...
I would hope Christian Slater didn't do this, which he did not.
Right.
Anyway, we do see that Christian Slater brings his gun to the meeting anyway. Thank goodness he does. Because they get into the elevator and he tries to like psych Bronson Pinchot out in the elevator to be like, are you actually in this or are we walking into a trap or whatever? And Bronson Pinchot doesn't give up that he's wearing a wire. And so he bluffs it out. And Christian Slater is like, nah, man, we cool, friends.
I would have absolutely pissed myself in that elevator.
Yeah.
Because he like puts his gun right in his face.
Right up
like,
in his face.
I can tell something's going on. What the fuck? Tell me everything. And he's just like, I don't want to die. I'm not having fun. Please come and save me. He's like
save me.
Clearly talking to the cops.
Yes.
And it keeps cutting back to the cops like, he's not going to kill him. He's fine. He's fine. And then one of the other cops is going to be like, no, he's going to kill him. And they're like going back and forth like with this dude's life in a way that is so callous and funny to me. But he survives. He's fine, guys.
He's
forever traumatized, but fine.
This is also where, so we are like 30 minutes from the end of the movie at this point. And before we started recording, I said to you, I don't think this recording is going to take all that long. Because even though this movie is 2 hours long, roughly 40 minutes of it is gunshots. And we've already had 10 minutes of gunshots before. This is the last 30.
Yeah.
Because they literally get up to this meeting room and they meet with the producer guy. He and Clarence get along immediately because he's like, oh, I fucking love that movie you made, Go Home in a Body Bag, which is supposed to be like not Apocalypse Now, but Apocalypse Now.
It's the best Vietnam movie since Apocalypse Now.
Yes. And so they bro down and he takes him out to the patio to be like, tell me how you really got this Coke. And he's like, he reiterates the cop story. He sticks to it. And he's like, come on, I'm a cool guy. I've got the gun, but I think you just want to do business. Let's just do business. And he's like, cool. And he's like, I'll go get the money. And he's like, awesome. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll be back and let her count the money. And, you know, then I'll come back and we'll wrap up basically.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, like the drug deal, even though he did come in armed and wasn't supposed to, like they work through that really quickly. It's like the drug deal's going great up to this point.
Right. which is where he has a real long conversation with Elvis in the bathroom. And Elvis is basically just like, man, you're so fucking cool. You did that shit. You really took care of business. I'm Elvis, and Elvis is proud of you like a father would be. And it's just like, what the fuck? What's happening in this bathroom? But while he's in the bathroom, and somehow miraculously he doesn't hear any of this, the cops bust in because they have now heard that they're exchanging money for the drugs, which means now it's an actual drug deal instead of possession. It's intent to sell.
Yeah, they can bust the movie producer now, right? So that's like they have everything they need. Let's jump in and, shut it down.
Shut it down. So they jump in, and the movie producer has bodyguards there, and that one bodyguard, Boris, displays himself to be super unhinged and aggressively anti-cop. And he's just like, oh, I'll fucking kill these people. And the movie producer is like, whoa, hey, we aren't even gonna try and bribe them first? Like, come on. Like, what?
He's like, the one thing you didn't know about me, movie producer guy who hired me for this job is I can't wait to fucking shoot a cop.
I can't wait to shoot a cop.
Does more or less. Actually, I don't think that's what starts it, right? Because
that's not what starts it. What starts it is this next part where Clarence is still in the bathroom talking to Elvis. He has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, he doesn't hear until like the bullets start going off.
Right.
Yeah.
Bronson Pinchot turns to one of the cops and is like, I'm done, right? I can go now. Like, you have what you need. I don't need to be here. Basically, let me out of this room and before the shooting starts. And at this point, they're like, he's wearing a wire.
Yeah.
And then the shooting starts.
Yeah, the producer is like, you fucking piece of shit. Because, like, he can tell in that moment that he was turning on him,
Right.
Yeah.
And so the shooting starts. Christian Slater is like, what the fuck? Runs out of the bathroom. As the shooting is happening, someone tosses the suitcase over the couch and they shoot the suitcase. So now everyone is covered in, or I'm sorry, I totally missed this. The mob also bursts in.
Yes, they do. This is before the shooting actually starts. The mob is now here. Yeah.
Before the shooting actually starts. So the cops are here. Then the mob is here. Then Patricia Arquette's like, I'm wearing a wire. Everyone's like, fuck this. The shooting starts. They shoot the suitcase. The room is now covered in cocaine and feathers from the couch, the pillows, everything. Like, it is a mess.
Yeah.
And it looks at first like we've only got a couple people left standing. Clarence, a.k.a. Christian Slater, gets clipped by a bullet. So for part of the shooting, while everyone else is dying, we're following Patricia Arquette basically army crawling across the floor to him, being like, no, because she only cares about him in this whole thing.
Yeah, it's true romance, Paige. It's like, it's actual, this is real true romance, Paige.
True romance.
Yeah.
While that's happening, Chris Penn and one of his sergeants are like the only people left standing. And then the one mobster who doesn't speak English.
Right.
And so he throws one of his guns over the couch. So it looks like he's unarmed, but then he goes to stand up. He still has a gun. He shoots the sergeant who dies.
Yeah.
And then Chris Penn shoots back. So the mobster's dead. Who should be left behind the minibar in the room but Boris, the guy who hated cops? And he's like, call me an ambulance. And Chris Penn says, I'll call you a hearse, and then shoots him.
Yeah.
Cold-blooded murder.
Yeah.
He's like, that was for my friend, because no one's going to know that you didn't die in the shootout, so done.
Right.
And then Patricia Arquette grabs Clarence's gun and shoots Chris Penn.
Like, and it does kill Chris Penn, too. Like, it goes under his bulletproof vest. They show you that.
Yes. So now literally everyone but Patricia Arquette and Christian Slater are dead. Everyone is dead.
Yeah.
But some people have escaped the melee. So we see down into the lobby where like some of the other mobsters have taken people hostage and they're trying to get out. So it's chaos. And so as Christian Slater wakes up and he's okay and he can get out, they bloodily limp downstairs. Michael Rappaport has taken off. He is out. He has made it out of the hotel. As far as we know, he lives.
I assume so. Yeah. He shows up. He has a 7 a.m. call time. He had to bounce out of there, guys.
Had to bounce.
Like he'd love to stay and finish this drug deal with you guys, but like I have a 7 a.m. call time and it's TJ Hooker, guys. Like this is gonna make me. I've got to be there.
Yep. So they get down to the lobby. They escape to the Cadillac of the melee and they drive to Mexico with that money.
Yep.
And then we cut to like 5-6 years in the future where she's like, I don't know what would have happened if you would have died that day. I would have been sad, but I probably would have done what we did now. And I probably would have named our son something that wasn't Elvis, but we'd still be happy because we had this true romance in the past. But he did live and he's there with an eye patch. And that's
the
the
movie.
movie.
So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what'd you think about True Romance, Paige?
Oh, there are parts that did not age well. Not at all. There are parts that I still really, really like. I mean, like you said, those conversation exercises, some of them work great, some of them don't. And I think that there are some performances that, like, I was astonished by how scary I found James Gandolfini even today.
Yeah, he does a great job. And it's scary, man.
Yeah.
It is.
I do love the first 20 minutes. I feel like unwittingly, it's almost like he wrote a perfect romance meet cute and then couldn't help himself because it's Quentin Tarantino and the rest of the movie happens.
Yeah.
But I also love like the scenes with Gary Oldman where they're kind of having that back and forth. That's one of those conversation exercises that works really well.
Yeah.
You know, I would almost love somebody remaking something like this modern day so that we get the parts that work and don't get the parts that don't. But even for that, there are parts of this that I still really like.
So this is the first time I saw this movie. I'm glad I saw it. I feel like if I had seen it when it or shortly after it came out, or maybe around the time you did, I would have liked it a lot more than I saw when I saw it today.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I didn't dislike it, but like a lot of the things you mentioned, you know, it makes it kind of hard to watch now looking back through the 2024 lens of it all. But I do think I understand why if you're like on a first date and a guy you're with is like, hey, what's your favorite movie? And you're like, I don't know, maybe like when Andy Dufresne makes it to the Mexican beach. And, you know, like in that and Shawshank Redemption, that's my favorite. And he's like, you know what my favorite is? When they end up at the beach in True Romance and you're like, I want to end this date immediately. This is a huge red flag.
Unless you follow it up with, I also liked when that happened in Planet Terror. Then, you know.
I never miss. But I would get why you would be like, oh, this is a red flag movie for people, because you either like really like it or really don't. But I definitely understand that.
Sorry, I just figured out who was playing Elvis Presley in Fun Facts.
It's Elvis Presley, Paige. We talked about.
No, I'm going to blow your mind.
Tell me it's Tupac. Oh my God, is it Tupac?
No, but that would be incredible. That'd be incredible.
But Paige, I think we said it all. I mean, I think we covered it. But Paige, maybe we should just move into those fun facts. So why don't you hit us with your fun facts? Romance fun facts.
I'll start with the most disappointing fun fact. And I do think that this has maybe changed since then, and this was an old interview. But Quentin Tarantino, that one scene with too many N-words in it, has said that's one of his proudest monologues. But he basically said that he pulled it from a roommate. He had a black roommate who used to basically say that speech to one of the guys that lived with them who was Italian. And so he kind of just lifted that entire speech. And I'm like, well, it's very different when it's coming from a black person. That's a whole different kind of speech. And I feel like it does not translate that way in this movie.
No, it just comes off super racist.
Just comes off super racist. And I really hope that someone, I assume someone at this point, has pulled him aside to be like, hey man, that's not how it came off in the movie. In a 2011 interview with AFI, Gary Oldman has said that this is one of his 2 favorite roles that he got to play. In fact, he has often lobbied to make an entire movie based on that one character where he gets to play Drexel Spivey for a whole movie.
You know what, Paige? I'd fucking watch that.
I'd watch the shit out of that. I'd watch it. Brad Pitt improv'd almost all of his lines.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. I mean, he doesn't really have a lot to say, really, you know?
No. He also found the hat that he's wearing in the kitchen sequence on the boardwalk in Venice. He washed it, and Venice, California, to be clear.
Of course.
Took it, washed it, and wore it for the film. But when Gary Oldman first met with Tony Scott about the project, he said he hadn't had a chance to read the script, and then asked Tony Scott what the part would be like. And Tony Scott said, "You're playing a white guy who thinks he's black, and you're a killer pimp." And Gary Oldman accepted the role on site.
God, I love that. That's such an insane ask. And Gary Oldman's like, I know nothing about it. Let's go.
I don't know. Yeah. So Tony Scott gave Patricia Arquette the purple Cadillac as a gift after shooting Wrapped. Because at the time she was driving, because she was not super famous at the time, she was driving the Ford Futura that she was driving, kept breaking down, and she couldn't always get to set on time. So they gave her the purple Cadillac.
That's awesome. Honestly, like, it's such an iconic car from this movie too. Like, that would be cool.
They spent 5 days shooting the scene with her and James Gandolfini in the motel room, alone. Just that scene took 5 days.
Yeah, that's rough,
crazy.
man. Yeah, I bet those were rough. And they're like very physical performances for both of them.
Yes. Now, This movie, although it is not directed by Quentin Tarantino, is considered part of the Tarantino universe. If you're unfamiliar with his canon of films, almost everyone, there's a connection and a through line through all of them, that they all exist in the same world, an alternate universe to ours. So, and by alternate, I just mean a fictionalized universe where all of these stories are connected.
Yeah.
So as far as where this fits in, Lee Donowitz, who is the character of the producer in this movie, is the grandson of Sergeant Donnie Donowitz from Inglourious Basterds, who famously helped kill Hitler in that movie theater. It's theorized that that's where his love of movies comes from. The second piece is that in Reservoir Dogs, which comes out 2 years before this, Mr. White mentions working with a girl named Alabama, implying that Alabama may have had some dealings with the heist group in Reservoir Dogs, and that's what she's on the run from.
Huh. Okay.
For this movie. So that's how people believe that it fits into the Tarantino universe. So, as far as Gary Oldman's crazy accent, he said that he got the idea for Drexel's voice in New York. He heard a kid talking outside his trailer, and he pulled him off the street and said, "Read this dialogue and tell me what you think." And then basically imitated the sound of that kid reading the dialogue. And the kid would read things and be like, "That doesn't work." And he's like, "Well, how would you say it?" And so they worked together to, in some cases, rewrite some of that dialogue, which is wild.
And they say a child shall lead them, Paige.
A child shall lead
It's
them.
wild. I mean, whatever, man. It's a weird choice. So good on that kid for making it.
So let me ask you this, because I saw this person's name in the credits. I was like, I don't remember them in this movie.
Val Kilmer is that person's name. I did not see them either, but their build is like Mentor or something like that.
They are playing Elvis Presley.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I wish I had known that. Oh my God, I cannot believe they tried to tell me that actual Elvis was Val Kilmer.
Yep.
Of course they couldn't show his face. The ruse would have been up, Paige.
It would have been up, but he spent 8 hours in makeup for those 2 days.
For why? He's in soft focus for the whole thing.
Spread across 2 days. So I'm assuming that's 3 to 4 hours a day. For 2 days of filming, and it's called Mentor in the closing credits so that they didn't get any litigation from the Presley estate. But he's playing Elvis.
Of course. Wow. Okay.
Now, we have debated how romantic this movie is, and we'll continue to as we go
Have we debated it? I think we both said it wasn't.
Copies of the original script, when it went out to studios to get funding and for people to package it to make it, the script had a tagline that said, "When you're tired of relationships, try a romance." Which honestly, knowing the movie, is a hilarious tongue-in-cheek thing to say.
Yeah.
So on the first day of shooting, apparently Christian Slater and Tony Scott had very different ideas of how to play Clarence. And Clarence comes off as very kind of unhinged in this movie. And I think that is because of what happened that day, because Tony Scott sent Christian Slater home with a copy of Taxi Driver and told him to watch it as homework, which then influences how the character of Clarence is played.
Okay.
Now, in very early versions of the script, the character of Drexel had several more scenes. Many were removed and were originally supposed to be added into Pulp Fiction before being removed from that project as well. It's unclear how they would have fit into Pulp Fiction and that timeline, although I have to imagine it had something to do with the briefcase, if you're familiar with Pulp Fiction.
Yes. I mean, the gold
Yes.
briefcase that no one quite knows what's inside of it. Yeah.
Right. I'll end on this one because I think this is kind of fun. So we've talked about Quentin Tarantino's roommates a little bit. He had many over time, because he was very, very poor and working as a video store clerk for quite a long time before becoming famous. And so the character of Floyd, essentially supposed to be a mirror of one of the roommates they had to suffer through. He said a couple different roommates contributed, but he basically put just the description of the character on the page and what the character is doing with no lines. And so he credits Brad Pitt with making it so memorable. But I also think that if you are a screenwriter, this is where the importance of descriptions and screen and scene directions comes in, because those are the parts that, like, no one will ever hear them in the movie. And so I think some people can be very clinical with them and be like, so-and-so walks to the store, so-and-so does this, so-and-so is wearing a sweater. But if you stop and actually are like, this is the kind of person that this person is, it informs the people not only reading your script, but when they go to make it, then somebody like Brad Pitt is like, I get who this person is, and that's what they would say. Like, And even for you as you're writing dialogue, it makes dialogue flow a lot more easier when you have that concept of who this person would be and what they would say in that moment. And those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk a little bit about box office. So what do you think the production budget was for True Romance in 1993?
This was pretty small. I want to say about $5 million.
Okay, Paige, it was actually $12 million.
That's fair. $12 million is on the screen.
It was 12.5 technically, but $12 million ish, 12.5. If you adjust for inflation, that would be roughly $27.2 million today. So 12.5, what it cost back then, but 27 today.
I think, that's about fair what it would cost today to make this.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know. I think it looks good.
A lot of squibs.
Yeah, and there's a lot of star power in it, even though some of them were early on in their career. Some of them weren't. Like Dennis Hopper wasn't, Christopher Walken wasn't. Like they do have some established people in this. Anyway, it came out the weekend of September 10th in 1993, and it was number 3 the weekend it came out. It was beat by The Fugitive. That was in its 6th week and still number 1, guys.
Ooh, the one-armed man.
Yeah, it was the last week it was number 1, but it had been number 1 for 6 weeks in a row. Like, The Fugitive was a tour de force when it came out. Number 2, the weekend True Romance came out, though, was Undercover Blues. Number 3 was, of course, True Romance. Number 4 was The Man Without a Face. And number 5 was The Real McCoy. Number 6 was Jurassic Park. And number 7 was Hard Target, Page. Oh, number 8, In the Line of Fire. Number 9, Sleepless in Seattle. Guys, they were hit after hit in this theater. Anyway, so what do you think True Romance made in its opening weekend, Page?
I think it probably made, because this is still back in the day, $1 to $2 million opening weekend.
It actually made $4 million opening weekend. It did
Okay,
all right.
cool.
Yeah. And in its second weekend, it made $2.6 million. Now, I tend to think it didn't track after this, and it was actually in theaters a little bit more because the total box office that I have is higher than just those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have that information. I apologize. But what do you think it made domestically? Actually, it only made $362,000 internationally. So let's just go ahead and factor that in and say, what do you think it made worldwide at the box office?
Worldwide, I'm going to say it probably makes its budget back, but not by much. I'm going to put this at around $15 million.
Paige, you were so right about it making its budget back and not by much. It made $12.6 million, which is just more than its $12.5 million budget. And if you adjust that for inflation to today's dollars, it's $27.5 million today. But that's your box office, Page. It made its budget back, but didn't make a lot more. And I mean, I'm sure it's made money since then. So it's probably made them quite a bit of money, but didn't in theaters.
Sure.
But that's your box office. Paige, do you want to hit us with that? I mean, romance/roar scale?
I mean, romance, it's a 1. Roar, I'm going to give it a 2.
Those are my exact numbers too. It is a little sexy in some of those sex scenes. For me, it was the phone booth scene. But the first one's not bad either. But there's nothing really romantic in it. And I think they know that.
Yes. I think that's part of the joke.
Yeah. But Paige, do you think they're still together?
Yes, and we should all be concerned.
We talked about this a little bit earlier, and I'm going to stick with I think they're both probably dead.
Very possible.
Yeah.
Wouldn't doubt it.
Live fast, die young. He says it many times. Leave a sexy corpse.
Leave an attractive corpse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they might have achieved that goal, leaving that child parentless. What's Elvis going to do, Paige?
Well, you could argue that maybe that child grows up to be Bill, but the timeline would be off.
Bill from Bill and Ted?
No, Bill from Kill Bill, because Bill in Kill Bill is orphaned as a child and raised by a pimp.
I believe you, and I have seen that movie, but, it's whatever. So, I guess that's a possibility. But Paige, this week we watched True Romance. What are you going to make us watch next week as we continue? It's Paige's birthday month, so she gets to do what she wants, guys. Sit back and enjoy.
Next week is my birthday.
Oh, does this come out on your birthday next week? Is it next Thursday, Paige?
It's not next Thursday, but it is that week.
Because, Paige, I sort of feel like we're celebrating your birthday like we celebrate a president's birthday, and that's where they get the whole month to celebrate their birthday, and then at the end of the day, we all have to buy a mattress.
Yeah, there you go. So let's see. This will come out on my sister's birthday.
I think you mean our sister's birthday. Whatever. It's fine. Like, it's fine.
We still are reviewing your
I
paperwork.
knew it.
But this is one of our family's favorites. And there is a romance in it, but there's a lot of other story that is not romance that's still great. And that is That Thing You Do.
Oh, you doing that thing you do.
Bay classic.
Can I just tell you, I've seen this movie a bunch. I love it because it accurately shows how the second you add a good drummer to your band, that shit's going to pop off.
That is what happens in this movie.
So that's all I learned watching that movie. So, like, listen, I get it. Tom Hanks was absolutely right. If you have a killer drummer in your band, ooh, nothing's going to stop you, which is why my band failed. Anyway, that's the joke, guys. Welcome to the conversation. But Paige, thank you so much. I cannot wait to revisit that movie. It's been a while since I've seen it. So hopefully there isn't some weird scene I forgot where Tom Hanks says the N-word a bunch. But we'll check out that movie and find out as we revisit That Thing You Do.
That Thing You Do. I've been listening to the soundtrack all week. And also, I'm going home, so I will watch it with my family. And that would be great.
Paige, are you going to record from there?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Honestly, I'd appreciated the invite to this family get together. We're all going to get together and watch a traditional movie, That Thing You Do. But like, it's fine. I got to work or whatever.
I'll share next week when we do it, the story of how our family ended up loving and watching this movie, because it has lived on in family lore. So I'll share it then.
Oh, absolutely. Can't wait. But your homework for next week is to watch That Thing You Do and then check back for that next episode.
Yeah. Hey, Todd, do you have any reviews for us?
You know what I do? And I will start off with this Spotify comment. I'm going to read this one from our most recent Lisa Frankenstein episode from someone named Berkeley. And they say, thank you so much for your segment about 45 minutes in about high school relationships. It hits so close to home. I graduated 3 years ago, and a lot of my closest friends exclude me from everything they do as a group now, and moving on has been really rough. Putting them behind me and finding new friends with my values and interests has been a huge journey, and anyone else going through that, I wish you the best. Thanks for the laughs. Y'all are a blessing in this world. That is such like a thoughtful, nice comment. And I wasn't expecting it when I started reading it. I was like, oh, this is going on a journey. Wow.
It gets better.
We did sort of talk about how it does get better after school. And like, I went through a very similar journey after college for me, where I was like, maybe I am not like a hard right-wing conservative.
Maybe.
And I need to think and have my own thoughts. And maybe the people I'm hanging out with who are reinforcing that like evangelical fascist Christian belief is like not great, and I shouldn't hang out with them. And I lost a lot of friends at that time in my life, and built a new community around me, and it's way better, trust me.
I mean, I will say if you have not made any new friends since high school, something's wrong. Time to go make some new friends.
Yeah, make some friends.
In general.
Yes.
Doesn't matter why, how, just make some new ones. Meet new people. I'm still making friends in my 30s. I have a newer friend that came out for the weekend. We spent the weekend doing crazy shit around Los Angeles, and it was a blast. And new friends are a blessing. Embrace new friends.
That's great. So yeah, thank you so much for that Spotify comment. And if you want to have me read your 5-star Apple review or Spotify comment, please leave one of those things and I'll do just that. So yeah, if you guys like this show and want to hear our other show where we talk about horror movies, that is The Horror Virgin. That's the only other podcast I am on, but Paige is also on Cult Podcast, which you can find at Cult Podcast. And you can find us on social media. I am at Todd J. Awesome, literally everywhere. Paige is at Paige Wesley on Instagram.
No, it's at Rampage Wesley on Instagram and TikTok, at Paige Wesley on Twitter.
That's right. All right. So that's where you can find Paige. If you want to find the show, we are at Romancing the Pod Show, right?
Yep. Romancing Pod Show on Twitter.
Well, and Instagram, right?
And Instagram, but it's show SHO because character limits. If you start typing Romancing the Pod, it'll come up.
It'll definitely come up on Instagram. I don't know about Twitter because I haven't posted on Twitter in a hot ass minute. So like, who knows? But that is where you can find more of us. So yeah, guys, give us a follow. Support the show any way you can. We'd love it.
Smash that like button.
Hell yeah.
That's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
And I'm Todd.
And you phone booth me to phone pletion.
Phone booth pletion? Maybe? I guess. Like, he turned those yellow pages white, though, and sticky. They were definitely sticky. I don't know what color they were, but definitely
before.
sticky. Yeah. That's probably true. This is not the first time that phone booth has seen some sex, is what we're saying, I guess. But guys, we'll see you next week. Bye! I gotta find that typewriter from Delirious Nerd.